oh. So like, yeah, it's a part of the my technological deficiencies.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I don't understand this shit.
It's the new reality. So we got to get accustomed. You know what I started doing though? I started like when I'm doing the Zooms or an Instagram thing, I started like performing. I started like making like this, like I'm like directing my own little independent film or something. You know? Okay, everyone. Hello. We're joined this hour by Aideed Medina, a wonderful poet from Fresno, California, who's going to share a poem with us right now, and then we're gonna break into some conversation. Aideed, please share with us some of your wonderful work.
Thank you. So this is a recent piece. I've just written it. In fact, it's dated. The title of the poem is April 6th, 2020. We need to love through this fear and that fear and this other fear. And I'm keeping all of the windows of my house open to rainstorms, but closed when I visit my daughter. I love her through the glass. We need to love through walls, through iron bars, through cardboard shelters and empty bank accounts. We love, we love our mothers and our fathers in hospice rooms, at gravesites, our prisoners of race wars who can't remember their mothers, their fathers. We need to love through the catcalls and the angry hooded mobs, love through the fingers covering our mouths, the weight of everything we are buried with, laboring love through the sickness of our minds. We need to love through the thickness of all this viscous unknown, this earth's contraction. Whatever it is that you're afraid of, we will love right through its density, seeing something of ourselves over on the other side, remembering walls cannot stop us, only detain us momentarily. Are we not all paying, even though it isn't the same price, some kind of price? Wounded at the knee, at the belly, at the heart, in our blood. Love is not waiting for quarantine to end. It can go anywhere, inhale anything, touch everything and everyone. It holds hands with death, dances with every moment of my life. I love you with every moment of my life.
So all forms and rounds of applauses for you there.
This has been my favorite on
Oh, that's one too. Okay, so I'm trying to like do a new like little thing where I get them all right. So I don't know. Start with the snap, and then go the clap, thumbs up. Yeah, so start clap, snap, thumb.
I'm talking about jazz hands.
Jazz hands, because you can't do the jazz hands first, and then the clap. It'll be like anticlimactic. You got to end with the jazz hands.
I'm gonna now hear your voice every time I go going through the steps.
Yeah. So you're in Fresno. You're doing poetry. How did you get started? When did you get started? And yeah, let's talk about your poetic journey. Getting started, going to open mics, and building up the reputation that you're now known across the
I
country.
I've I think I don't remember a time when I wasn't writing, and from the moment I probably learned English, I like fell in love with the sight of words on paper, and I've been writing forever. But sharing, like publicly, I started in college at Fresno State. Um, just open mics. I was not an English major. I was a biology major. So, I didn't have the benefit of getting herded through the great machine like we were talking about a moment ago. Um, my experience with Fresno poetry and poetry at large, like poetry in the world, has just been a very human one, just showing up to so many open mics and invitations to share my work and me loving to share my work. And so I've been blessed. I've gotten to work with many great poets and writers and associated myself with not only them but other artists, painters, great thinkers of all kinds, creatives from every part of California, and uh, I'm in love. People like you, how do you make connections? You make heart connections through art, and I've definitely been. It's been a heart to heart with individuals everywhere.
Yeah,
Like my friend Abe right there. you know,
yeah.
shout out to Abe. Jazz hands for Abe.
Yeah,
You know, jazz hands for Abe. Uh,
encourage Abe to accept an interview.
please, Abe, please, please, for my sake, do an interview with Matthew.
But okay, so you start off, you're doing this poetry. So you mentioned earlier in the answer there about this idea of the Fresno machine. So for those who are not, because not everyone watching is involved in the world of poetry. So can you explain to people that how what a rich history Fresno poetry actually has?
Oh my God. Fresno has this amazing legacy of poets. We've had two U.S. poet laureates come from our town, from our area. The latest, of course, Juan Felipe Herrera. Uh, there's people always they 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 think we're joking sometimes when people say, "Oh, the best poets come from Fresno." What's in the water? Well, this is my take on that situation. Uh, Fresno is not privy to all the suffering in the world, like we were talking about. Not Fresno is not the most oppressed place, or the where we've been clamped down as people of color, or people who are with an immigrant story. Like both of our U.S. poets from this area have had. It's really a matter of survival. If you want beauty in this valley, in this city, you have to go and create it, because we are not blessed with being physical meccas of the great creatives of the world. We're not New York and we're not Los Angeles, where you can maybe step out and find amazing history, dating back 100 some years on the wall to look at, or people to claim. You have to really come and dig yourself out of the clay pan and create some beauty just for your own sake. And
Yeah,
so when you're living under those conditions, I think that's why we have so many wonderful poets like James Tyner, Marisol Baca, you know, Tim Hernandez, who I dare claim, coming from here too. Uh, ra- this quantity, Soul Vang. This morning I got news that one of our pioneer, we call them pioneer one. Poetry exists all over the world and in all cultures, but our Hmong community here, we have so many amazing Hmong writers. And this morning we all found out that one of our elders in the Hmong writing community has passed on, post Mao. Mao. And all of that brotherhood of like, yeah, I see you and I see your struggle, I think has created this amazing, rich environment for poets in Fresno and in the Central Valley, because we have to cling on to our work in order to survive emotionally, mentally, like spiritually. I mean, that's the reason why I create, why I write. And I think that's the legacy of Fresno, is that out of dirt, what most people just conceive as a pile of dirt. By the way, scientifically speaking, that's not a term. No, I'm just kidding. The soil, out of the soil, that's why Fresno has such a strong legacy.
uh, can you speak to a little bit about the poet who recently passed, and share a little bit with our audience, you know, about this person?
Well, here in Fresno, we have a huge population of Hmong people who resettled after the Vietnam War. They aided the U.S. government in a secret war, right, against the Vietnamese, and we they're here now. They're here with us and as allies, and so they, being the new kids on the block, historically speaking, all, we know what it is to be twisted and taken apart from your culture and everything. Well, one of the things about the Hmong language is that it wasn't never traditionally a written language. So to be known as one of the first Hmong American poets in the nation, an elder like Post Mao, and there's links. I'll share them with you, Matt, and you can put them up. His legacy is important, not only to Fresno but to the world because it tells our story as people, as as human beings who are constantly having to be on the move for survival,
Yeah.
for just life's sake. And I'm a big proponent of fuck borders, and people should be free to be able to move, especially although to survive. I don't give a rat's ass if you're not a magnificent person or you weren't an ally. Everybody has a right to move. And so Post Mal, he's from that generation. He's an elder, considered a mentor, an educator. He taught in Merced, and I was lucky enough to be connected with him last year. I got invited to read at this wonderful event called Words as Sanctuary at Merced Community College. And it was myself and like all these super cool uh, Hmong writers from the Hmong American Circle of Writers. And so I was like totally privileged to be, a little chicanita up in the mix here at this reading. And my friend Sol Vang was there. I love that man. I love his book. Sol Vang, and he introduced me to everyone, and there was Post Mao, and he took the time to talk to me about my writing and as a person, even though he was very ill and battling cancer. Anybody who is my better in my consideration, my better as a poet or a person, as an elder, as a person that I respect, eh, to take time to show me some, try to give me advice and to writing. Yeah, shout out to Merced. Just a lot of good stuff going on out there, thanks to the librarians that I know. But he was a great man because even though he had achieved his many of his educational goals and had survived a war, survived refugee camps, had survived this, being transplanted into this country that likes to eat us up as people of color and indigenous people and just chew us up and and whitewash us and remove our culture and remove our languages. He still took the time to try to teach me something and talk to me
No,
as a
that's
thank you
no,
for
that's
letting me
really
talk about it.
no. Thank you, thank you. I think we had a little bit of a delay there. I'm not sure if I was talking over you. I apologize if I was. Um, we have another person that came out of Fresno. For that Fresno legacy. He passed away, a while ago now, but it was Victor Martinez who wrote "A Parrot in the Oven," and you and I actually met at his brother's um,
Oh yeah, Ramiro's his brother.
at Milo's thing there.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Martinez. Oh, all the Martinez with John, crazy ass, and and Ramiro. So um,
Arturo Montoya.
Montoya, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Andres Montoya. My brain is scattered. Andres Montoya, you know, also taken way too soon, but left an imprint, of poetry and it still inspires a lot of people. There's, no, we've had many. Like, I accidentally ended up here. I wasn't, I wasn't like many of us actually, though. Like many
yeah,
of us, uh, like many of us accidentally ended up here in Fresno. But I'm proud to claim it. I'm from Salinas, from the Central Coast.
yeah.
I'm never afraid at. Shout out to Salinas and all the lettuce, all my field workers. That's my parents were farm workers. I didn't come here until I was about to turn 18.
Okay.
But Fresno, these two big ag towns where people live and die in the fields, that's what produce, like I said, you have to create beauty if you're constantly just being pushed to work and put your nose into the grinder. Many of the poets here in Fresno, Raza poets, have come out of the fields.
Mm. So we got a question here coming from Jesse. He says, how much has being from the Central Valley shaped her into the person she is?
Oh, so much. So much. Like I said, I've always felt very connected to my raza because especially when I was growing up in Salinas, because on the east side of Salinas where I grew up in, it was like 90%, from the same ranchos even in Mexico. Not even just Mexican American, but from the same ranches, like from Chavinda and Guanajuato. Like, there were certain places that we all knew, all the families knew each other. But being here in the Central Valley gave me a more worldly connection. Like I found myself, I don't know if it's just the age that I came because I went into college during that time, and I started learning about myself in respect to the rest of the world and how I was part of the rest of the world when I never realized that as a kid. You don't realize that. You barely feel connected to your neighborhood. So um but here Fresno, all of the people that I have met, the brown berets, like Mecha that shaped me a lot at Fresno State. Uh, the poets of Fresno State, like the actual English majors, those all of those connections. The my Oaxacan familia, like there's the Central Valley. I think I bloomed here. I became a woman here. You know? I came a little tiny lettuce from Salinas, and I became like this huge huerta in Fresno. I'm like, I'm all blossoms and peaches hanging off, and
So,
and orange smelling in the winter. I don't know what to tell you. I think this is where I became a woman.
okay. So, can we hear another poem?
Sure, sure, sure. Claro que sí. Well, trying to find. Uh, I often talk about and write about food because I'm a gordita. I love to eat, and we write what we know. So I was told by one of my teachers in high school. I look at nopales and I think ensalada de nopales con queso, nopales asados sobre una parrilla y un poema para cada espina. Thorns through my earlobes, thorns through my tongue, sacrificios que traen cosas bellas, ofrendas. These little ofrendas of thought, love, sweat, blood are meant to be consumed by lo sagrado, open wound in the earth heart, swallowed up by the sea, taken up in a great inhalation by the sky. I have been lying, letting the world believe my words are meant for public consumption. Just everyday fiction, art to fill volumes to publish, to be read in libraries, in bed, by neurotic lovesick people, or by small-time old neighborhood criminals who crack a smile when they see my name, yo, y tú, solo tinta, y tú, lo sagrado, flowering cactus, sweet blood on the knees, fingertips, ink, solo tinta, me la robo. I'm only a thing to write.
Beautiful. So many of us have had to migrate our work from being face to face and in person in venues onto the internet in this kind of COVID era. So, how has your experience been with the Zoom life?
Well, I'm not an IT professional. um, Yeah, learn how to use the computers, people. Also, it's been difficult for me because, especially when I'm sharing my work, like right now, it's easy because I know you, so I know your energy. But I'm a very down in the ground, grinding stone kind of person to person, very elemental kind of poet. I like to be in touch with the energy in the room, and so it's very difficult sometimes to share like this because it's very sterile. It's just a computer, and we're all connected via this little invisible magic shit we call the internet.
Yeah.
And I, and I hate video.
Mm.
I hate videos. I don't like cameras. I'm a big ham. Okay. I like to wear crazy ass flower pieces in my hair, and I'm a showgirl. I'm like a cross. I'm probably like the Vegas showgirl of poetry. But you get me on the first time I went on Facebook Live.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
it was an organized event. It was to, show spirit of camaraderie with the DJs of the Central Valley, Omar Lopez, people who were trying to make their money right now that, their money making situation is closed off because of what's happening to us and being in isolation. And so I did it because they asked me, and I wasn't in the right place. And I had even told her, you know what? I don't know. I'm kind of not all there. My daughter was sick. I was worried about her. I couldn't get to see her because she was in strict isolation for 21 days. I had just come back from Mexico a few weeks prior. So I was still watching myself and my son for symptoms of anything, because we went to the airport, not because we were in Mexico, but we were in a pinche LAX airport, and then we had to run and walk through LA too. And so all of these things were weighing on me. And so the camera came out. They started looking for me. Aideed, where's your live stream, Aideed? And then I had dedicated to my friend Aileen, who's a painter. She has cancer and she's going through some shit. So I wanted to raise funds for her. So I had asked, instead of giving me money, to donate for her. So it was publicized. People were waiting. People were like, and I'm at home going, so Omar Lopez had to call me, and she's like, "Hey, what's going on?" And I'm like, "Where are you?" And I was like, I'm here." And I turned it on, and then I had an anxiety attack. It was it was a very human moment. I'm okay with it now. At the moment that it was happening, we live and die by our words and how we share our words, Matt.
Uh-huh.
And I felt like a stumbling, mumbling idiot. I was scared. The fear was coming out through my face. I was on the verge of tears. I'm pretty sure I cried at some point. I had to turn off the Facebook Live. Ome called me. She talked me off the ledge, and I came back, and then I did what I was supposed to do. But that was it was very hard, and I still tried to shy away from doing these kinds of things. But I have friends like you, and you're trying to do good things and connect us in this time, and it's very important. It is. And I have found, when I'm not under the pressure of actually being on camera as a like, oh, people are here to listen to me, then I'm quite enjoying using Zoom and all of these medias to connect with people, and I need it. I
Yeah.
really I need it. Uh, Santa Cruz Word Church, y'all need to look for that. Um, Great open mic every Monday. Oh my god! And they've been doing it on Instagram, and it's wonderful. It was very healing just to sit there and listen to the poets and see my friends, and that was good. And I think that this we need, I'm glad that we have this technology and it's allowing people to work from home. And I think that what it's showing us too is that there's a lot of things that we could do without moving about and wasting gas and wasting resources and everything else because we have these and we should use them for more than just showing our naked butts to the world or whatever it is other people are using them for. Because apparently, one of my friends was saying, there's a lot of nudity on these things, and I was like, you have a way more lively set of friends. I wanted to tell
Uh,
but no, I think these are great tools of our age, and we should use them. And I just want to get better at it because if this is the only way that I can share my work, well then I better learn how to use this shit.
yeah. So, you mentioned earlier that you were a part of Mecha
Yeah,
in the early days. We have a question from the audience. They ask, Joey asks, "What is your thought on Mecha changing its name to MEPA?"
I'm an old lady. I'm almost 50 years old.
Yeah,
Uh, that was an identity that we carved ours for ourselves, out for ourselves at the time when it was created. It was needed for us because we didn't have any other identity because they were trying to tell us that we didn't exist. And people who are not of my generation and older than me, and I'm talking, there's like way OGs, and I've heard some young people call them Chicanosauruses and all this other shit. Look, all of us, all of us in this in this world, in this journey that we're going through, have people who have come before us, who have put in work to carve out an existence, to be able to say, I was here. And at the moment in history, when Mecha was created, when the word Chicano was created, my elders, not even us, it wasn't even us. Can you imagine? Yeah, I'm 50, but I'm talking about people, greater people than us. You know, when all these people created that identity for us, we needed it so we could breathe. And now there's a whole new population, a whole new set of stories, not even one story, a whole new set of stories from South and Central America. And we share a language that the fucking colonizers gave us, right? Because that shit ain't even ours. That shit ain't even ours. Spanish is not ours, but it's part of our fucking legacy. So that's the thing that connects us, right? Apart from that, even our fucking language varies from town to town. Fuck. Much less from country to country. But now that community that is here, that young blood that is coming up and needs to find what our elders had to find for us and had to find for themselves, it's it is okay for them to their own create their own stories, you know. But I don't think anyone should dismantle the shit that was there before. I'm not going to go to Teotihuacan and knock down the fucking sun pyramid
yeah,
because I'm in Fresno and I need a different kind of building. Like that doesn't make any sense to me. I respect everybody's right to fucking exist and be. So, and we have the power to create whatever identity we want for us. Let's fucking do it. And let's be respectful and mindful of the historical past, of the struggles that came before us.
yeah,
We can't suddenly say, fuck those old guys. Que se mueran los güeyes. They don't know shit about me. Yeah, they don't. They didn't. They couldn't even envision the beauty of the blood that would boil up through the south all the way up into Los Angeles and San Francisco and all of these places. Like, and I'm just talking about California. Now I know, it's of course, all over the world, right? You find people from South and Central and North America, Mexicans, everywhere, all over the world. There's a different experience being lived. And every one of those experiences should be celebrated and fucking respected. You know?
yeah,
So that's my take on that shit.
yeah. I mean, I personally think that had I lived in 1930, there have been people I disagreed with. I lived in 1960. There have been people I disagreed with. I lived in 1990, which I was actually alive in 1990. There were people I disagreed with then, and now I live in 1920 in 2020. There are people I disagree with. So I don't. There are people. I don't embrace the concept that it's a completely like this battle of generations. I mean, there were all kinds of people much younger than I that were fighting against the name change. That were people that were in their 19s, 20s, people fighting for it, people fighting against it. Back in the day when it was Meta, there were people who wanted to water it down for many other reasons. In the 90s, in the 80s, and I mean in the 70s. I mean so there's always been like a battle between people who really were really into like um, you know self determination, and other people who wanted to just kind of melt into nothing. So I mean that that fight is not new. So I don't I don't think it's
It's not new, but that's what I'm saying is that like, even at the time, even the term Chicano, okay. My father did not appreciate any of my fucking Mecha language, Chicanismo language, none of that shit. It was not okay with my father, but like I said, like you said, it wasn't always. It's not all just generational based. That's just my experience. You know, that was my experience, and I had, like I said, I had to cling to it because there was nothing else for me to cling to. There was nothing apart from that. I was basically told I was nothing. And I was born in the '70s. Okay. So, like I said, I'm almost 50 years old. Uh, I don't, again, I respect all struggles and all pueblos and all peoples who are trying to determine their own identity and fight against the shit that was, we were colonized globally. You know, it wasn't just one indigenous group or one blood that was tried to overcome by another. It was all all of these indigenous groups and peoples from all over the world. We were colonized and robbed of everything. I'll
Mhm.
never know what the hell mother language my people spoke. I'll never know. Thank you, race. I mean, self-hatred and all this other shit. I mean, like even within our own people, in my own family. So
Mhm.
whatever you can create for yourself, I respect it. You don't want to accept what was there before, you want to change it. Man, if you're the one up in there doing something, do what you got to do. I'm not a student anymore at college. I'm not. How the fuck can I determine your struggle? If you're the new student at college and you want to see yourself as in a bigger picture that I was ever able to see myself, I can't. I gotta respect it.
So what you are though is the president of an organization, and why don't you tell us about that?
I'm president of the Reforma Valley chapter. It's Reforma del Valle Central, and Reforma is a national organization. I'm very proud to be a part of it. Most of the people who are in Reforma, it's an organization of librarians. Okay, so it's under the American Library Association. They're one of the many groups that are part of it. Professional library people, great researchers, great archivists. These people who know books, like you, all you have to say is, "Oh, I wonder if there's a book about this," and they're the ones that go, "Oh yes, I have a list of like 20 some, you know, authors, and I can help you." And I don't know about you, but I know most writers worth their salt have worshipped that library as their church,
Hmm. Hmm.
their neighborhood library. My neighborhood library, Santa Lucia Library off Williams Road in Salinas, California. Okay, now I believe it's a Cesar Chavez Library. But Santa Lucia, that was my second home. Like there was home, and then there was the library. Those were my two places where I existed freely and safely. And to be a part of Reforma blows my mind. To be a president of a chapter, I can't even explain it because to me, librarians and these people who work with books have always had a very high place of honor in my heart, and I have always respected them greatly in my experience. They've
So
always been great people. So I'm very honored to be a part of it, and it's a great organization. You should look into it, everybody. Reforma. It's a national organization. There's probably a chapter in your city or area.
so Reforma, what are they doing right now? What are some of the projects they're ongoing?
Well, Reforma has been doing this work for 20 some years, and they continue to push. I mean, they've been working with refugee children for the last 15 years. No, before it became a fad, or before we're all fucking concerned about kids in cages, Reforma was already out there, you know, gathering books and trying to gather and trying to acknowledge these children who were in these situations, facing immigration court, being discriminated, being being forgotten, right?
Yeah.
And so they have children in crisis. Reforma's main goal has been to promote Latinx writers and illustrators in the library systems and make sure that Raza has access to those services because, like in most institutions, unfortunately, there's been some pushback on anything that's not mainstream white America, like so reformistas took it upon themselves to start this movement to create this accessibility to libraries and library systems, and now promotes books. They're working on creating an award for adults, but there's an award that came out of Reformistas, and that's the Pura del Pre Award, and that's for children's books, children's, and so they give out prizes. In fact, Parrot in the Oven was one of the first winners of the Pura del Pre
Mhm.
Award. Um, and they recognize, like I said, writers and illustrators that are published here in the United States.
Mhm. I would just say for everyone, if you're really enjoying this conversation, go ahead and share it on your page. I encourage you to do that so that the more people can hear about some of the work that you know that Aideed, but in general, people that we're interviewing are up to. I mean, if you love it, because I'm seeing people click hearts, then share it. So that's all incredible. That's all really really incredible. I mean, it's an amazing work. So what do you, though, as a poet, what do you have coming up? What are some of your projects uh, that you have in the pipeline in the development?
I'm almost nah. We all. I struggle every time I say I have my manuscripts, right, that I'm working on. But I've been saying that for like the last 4 years or whatever. Uh, One of the problems with being the kind of poet that I am, right there in the moment, in the heat of battle, like que vamos, we write it, we create it, we share it, y nos vamos on to the next thing, because that's how I work, in my heart, in my head, that's how it happens. And so right now I'm really trying to get through the whole mechanics of buckling down and doing the work, the non-artistic work that none of us artist people like to do, which is get the work published. And I, I think, I don't know, I don't know if I've always tried to put my energy into where my heart is satisfied. So it's been very difficult for me to get the discipline together, to submit my work, to review the manuscripts, all those other things, uh, because I get so much joy just from creating and sharing, and I've been lucky that. So I continue to work with all of those places that have opened up their doors to me. I continue to show up to libraries and workshops and schools, and wherever I get invited. I've gotten to work with the Fresno Grand Opera for 2 years in a row. I've worked with all the poet laureates that we've had in the city. I've been lucky that way. But I think right now my biggest project on my hands is to show my work, my written work, the respect that it needs from me. Uh, so that's where my focus is right now, like really putting in the work to get it published. And I have two manuscripts.
Two manuscripts. There you go. Yeah, when you finish that, let me know. I know a guy. I know a guy who knows a guy. So can you tell our audience about the Fresno Grand Opera? That sounds pretty legit.
Oh, that was so much fun. So Brian Medina, another amazing poet that we have here in Fresno, also a poet laureate. He got somehow connected with Fresno Grand Opera. They had a grant available, and they were looking to work with spoken word artists or slam poets or poets of any kind in the community. And Fresno State music students at the time. So they had this money and they wanted the project where we could create actual original work, like libretto for a modern version of art house music or uh, art music pieces. And we started off by matching our words to an actual opera by Hello Philip Levine and Levine and Glass. Okay, so we had Levine the poet and Glass the composer of music, and they created this opera, and it was called. It was an experiment in merging slam and spoken word and all different kinds of poets, because we also had our poet laureate James Steiner and some other poets out of Fresno State, like poets from the university working together. And I was just lucky that Brian Medina called me into this project, and we worked through it for 2 years. The second year, we got together with our musical counterparts. They gave us a composer and an opera singer, graduate students, and the students that were finishing their their degrees at Fresno State, and they put us together in a room and said, "Go for it, write a piece for the opera." And I was like, "What?" I had never been to the opera before this project, and I really enjoyed it. And my first time, the first year that we did it, that was hilarious because you know opera audiences is well, here in Fresno. I don't know how it is around the world, right? But opera audiences here in Fresno are mostly um, very very white, affluent, older audiences. And they told me, put your music, put your poems, whatever poems you want, 10 minutes. And 10 minutes is a lot. 10 minutes worth of poetry to this 10-minute piece of music here. And the section they gave me from the opera that had already been written was called Window on America. And it was a very politically charged piece of music. And the story, Levine's poems that were the basis of this opera were very political.
Yeah, yeah.
It was during the civil rights movement when they collaborated on this. So I threw my most political writing. I mean, and you know me, I write from the gut, so it has to be something that stabbed me, and I wrote something. So I put together pieces that I had written during a period of 5 years prior, and then I did it. And then I didn't even think about my audience or who was there, who was going to hear this. And when I finished and I came out of it, I realized people were silent, and I thought it was because they were upset or didn't like what I had said. And because then you come to and you're like, oh shit, I just I mean I just did my thing as an artist, and when you put your work out there, it's gonna make people feel a certain way. If you're any good, it's gonna touch them somehow.
Yeah.
And then the applause started, and then people were crying. And I had these viejitos come up to me and tell me, oh, I had never realized these laws and policies, how they affected a person.
I didn't know you took it personally, and
I mean, I could have said some shit right there, but I didn't want to. The man was already crying. You know,
Yeah.
could have been like, "Wow, so you're surprised that we're fucking human?" Like, you know? But I decided not to do that because
Yeah.
that would have been mean. I have this. I'm like, don't kick people when they're down, kind of person.
Yeah. So
So
for
yeah,
so for audience who might not be so aware, because again, it's a wide variety of people who tune in. Can you tell the audience a little bit about Philip Levine and his legacy?
well, he was one of the. He was a U.S. poet laureate. He's here from Fresno. Of course, all his ties. He's a god here. You're supposed to. I hear that if you're an English major, you get really immersed in his work. I got exposed to him much later, obviously, because I was not an English major, because I was a biology major,
Right.
and
Right.
I didn't know my gods, elders, and ancestors in the right community. So my first exposure to Levine really was through that project, and then I read his work, and then I thought, fucking. I'll tell you the one fucking crazy thing about reading Levine's work. It was like, oh shit, like I've written shit about this because we were having this, as human beings, apparently in the geographical location that we're at, we're having the same thought sometimes. You know, that whole gypsy transplant, trying to find your place thing. It was very, and the preciseness, something that we've discussed in other workshops that we've done. The preciseness. Fresno poets like to tell you where the fuck they're at when they're writing the piece. or they like to bring you to that spot. Out here on Shaw um, and Valentine at the corner by the IHOP, that kind of shit, like on the fifth bench, you know.
Yeah.
And we like to do that, and Levine did that. So I was like, oh shit, and that was without
The
me
most.
reading shit. So I'm like, so yeah, he look up his work. Like I said, everybody that comes before us deserves a spot of consideration, even if we feel like they don't exactly speak specifically to our story. It's good to
Yeah.
understand.
I absolutely. I remember always. I probably shouldn't say this on camera, but I used to always talk shit about different areas and not talk shit, but just like playfully imitate. And the Fresno thing was always like, imagine people saying these horrible things in this deadpan voice, like these horrible events in a very deadpan voice, like and very detailed, like we were by the riverbed, and it was the middle of April, so there was yellow grass amongst when Jojo got shot by the riverbed. Sometimes you don't have a choice. You know? And so that's like my impression of Fresno poetry. Like it's just like very, very vivid detail. A lot of like bad things happening, and you don't get too excited about it, or you don't get like there's not.
I get excited
Or at
about
least
everything about you.
you're different. You're different. But like that's my idea of I don't know. We mentioned the machine earlier. That's my idea of the machine, but it's great stuff. It's a great legacy, and
I
you can only.
think a lot of time. I think a lot of times we are led to believe that we're not supposed to have joy and love for it to be seriously considered poetry. Okay,
Mm,
and it's much more so when you're a woman. Like,
mm.
if I fucking write a love poem, oh, it's some silly girl shit, right? Macedillo writes a love poem. Ah, you know, But like I said before, if Pablo Neruda can get respected for writing poems about chichis, I should have more respect because I have them. They're right here. They're mine. And if I write about them, then I fucking know some shit about tits because I have them. And so I think that's why a lot of Fresno poets are so serious in their work, and and I
Mhm.
don't think it's fear or anything. I just think it's very stark truthfulness. Like maybe somewhere deep down in our collective, we're afraid to say Fresno's fucking beautiful at times. I don't know, but I love my city. Fresno is beautiful. You know what I love about it? I don't love the fucking infrastructure or the politicians that run it. Fuck Fryer. I mean, no one likes that. Come for me. But anyways, but I love the people. I
Yeah.
love the people of Fresno. I love the people. It's hard not to love people here because everybody's so fucking hardworking. I laugh when I see, like, I've been a part of a few social justice movements, mothers helping mothers, like other things that I feel strongly about. And people talk a lot of shit. A lot of these conservative people who live here in the valley with us, because we have two big spectrums. We have poor people and very free thinkers and everything else over here, and then we have very rich, affluent ag barons, and not only ag barons, even the poor white people who are trying to establish a certain hierarchy over us. you know, they talk a lot of shit and they say, like, oh, they need to get a job. Those fucking hippies out there protesting, get a fucking job. And I was laughing because I'm like, a lot of the people here in Fresno who are working in social justice movements have a job and are volunteering for 2, 3 fucking social programs at your kid's school. PTA
Yeah.
president, fucking after school. So that's Fresno. People have a job and they're doing like 4 to help the community. So you cannot not love Fresno.
So you mentioned mothers helping mothers. I want you to do me another favor. Encourage Gloria to accept the interview. I'm trying to get everybody in here. So
Oh, Gloria, yes, la generala. You and I
yeah.
had the pleasure of doing that. It just came up in my thank you Facebook memories when we did Two Poets in the Garden. Do you remember that? That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I remember that's where I met Gloria. So
Yeah,
so
so you helped us raise
I
mothers helping mothers, and thank you, Matt. Like I was saying, you know, my people all over are hardworking and do way more than they're given credit for. And
yeah.
Fresno is one of this.
And Gloria is definitely a shining example of that. So we're coming up on the hour. Is there what do people need to support? What do they need to find? How can they follow you? Let's let the people know.
Well, people really need to look out for Reforma. Go on Reforma's website, national website. See how you can get involved, and you don't have to be a library professional. You could be a metiche like me from the community and just be concerned and want to do something. Especially, we had this big old controversy about American Dirt. Okay, whatever. Enough said. But here's my thing: we have our own ability to create our own machines, to promote our own writers and voices. And Reforma has been doing it for 20 some years. Not something new. We are here. We've already been doing that. Why try to reinvent the wheel? All of you writers and illustrators and people in publishing who are up in arms about American Dirt getting promoted. Reforma is here for you. Find your local chapters. Make the connections because we are your machine. We've been here, ain't gonna go nowhere, all the time at your service. Aquí estamos y no nos vamos. Look up Reforma. I think that's the one thing I want to push today.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us this hour, and I'm sure we'll be seeing each other online, and I'm sure in the future, maybe even at like at the same table published by the same publisher if you get your stuff together.
Buena hora, en buena hora.
Yeah. All right. All right. I'll see you soon.
All right, bye, man. Bye, everybody. Bye, Jesse. And